Hopefully, I can do this without hitting my head off the camera. I have the camera in a different set of position again. I hope it'll focus okay. Uh, but we'll find out. The plan is maybe it'll focus if I move something in front of it. I'm hoping that it won't focus on my head if my head moves into shot. Because the plan is to paint live. And this is a painting that I'd started from Plain April stuff that I was doing. And I had millions of sketches, and I had millions of sketches at this particular place. And I went to this place last year as well, and I did a painting, and I thought at first, oh, it's okay. Then I was humming and hawing about it, and I'm at the same stage with this. I've only got a day, one and a bit sessions kind of done on it, and already I'm running into problems. But that's good for viewers because I get to talk about issues that come up in finished paintings as opposed to, sorry, it's going to focus on my hand, as opposed to working in a sketchbook like this, which is what I was doing during Plain April. And sometimes the things look a little bit kind of finished. That one looks a little bit finished, but it's not. Its function is not to be a finished piece in its own right. Its function is to be a color study that I may or may not come back to the studio and work with, right? And in today's thumbnail, also on the community tab, I think I put up a picture of it, but you'll probably see it better in the thumbnail. This piece here, and in fact, it'll probably focus on it quite closely because I know it likes focusing on things that are very near there. I really like this bit of the painting, okay? So I started changing my mind now about what I want to do with the painting. And I am thinking that instead of doing this, where there's a lot, everything but the kitchen sink is going on. I even have cows in it. I have waterfalls, little weirs, cows, trees. It's all lovely. It's a nice thing to paint. Very difficult though. But there's another issue that I identified with it. And it was another painter that actually um, summed it up really well. He's a guy on YouTube that I came across the other day, forget the guy's name, but he was doing plein air painting and he was outside and he was saying, you know what, I don't want to get too literal with this. And I went, that's it, exactly. So well expressed what is happening with my painting that I don't want to have happen. And it happened very much with this little version, which was done in situ outside, right? And um, it didn't happen as much with this one. This one I thought was slightly more successful, not fab, but there's parts I really like in it. But this one, um, it's there are things that I really don't like about it, and some of it is just brushwork in it. But I thought the issue was just brushwork. But now I'm thinking, no, the thing that bothers me even more than the brushwork, because I feel that the brushwork could get better, is the fact that it's too literal. It is a, hey, look, here are some cows and some trees and a weir. And it's a really interesting, pretty scene. Okay. And I'm going to represent that. It's too literally representational. And I don't know if you know what I mean, but I'm always banging on about the difference between fine art and illustration and just illustrating something. And I make it sound like if I want fine art to be somehow more important than illustration. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are different things, and that if you don't understand the difference between illustration and fine art, that you'll run into problems like the one I'm having, but not be able to identify what the problem is. So when somebody talks about a painting being painterly, they're talking about it looking like a piece of fine art usually, rather than looking like an illustration of something. And illustrations are great. Illustrations, have a wonderful function and they're beautiful to look at and everything, and often exist in their own right these days. And since kind of the 1950s, at least, when advertising was a thing, people have been working illustrations into pop illustrations into their painting. So you had the pop artists, right, that were commenting on the nature of mass culture. But what happens if you do a painting that's very literal? It becomes an illustration without you knowing it's an illustration, and it becomes a poorer piece of art for it. So that's my issue. But if I can get my head out of the way of the camera, um, I think I can solve this by doing something that's a bit of a trick, right? Because I don't want what happens if I do something like this, right, on this bigger scale. I've got something that represents reality very literally, you know, a little bit of painterly stuff going on with it, but basically it's trying to copy reality. Okay, it's saying, hey, this is, a representation of reality. You don't get much of how I feel about reality in this. That's what a literal version is. I want the passion in it, and I want somebody to see how I feel about that scene. I'll even sacrifice describing the scene in a literal way to do that, right? So the little trick I'm using, which I'm hoping is going to get me to that, has to do with that close up of this section. So this trick is to take a section of the thing rather than the whole piece, because the fact that it's got the cows and the kitchen sink and the weir in it, you can't see the kitchen sink, but you can see all the other things. The fact it's got all those other things in it, there's so much stuff technically for me to try and describe and control that there's really no room for the magic to come in, because I'm not that fabulous a painter that I can, do a constable on it or something and have like, hay wains coming in and, mills turning and all sorts of like peasants in the distance coming in carts in between trees and landscapes, I just know I'm not that good that I can manage all that. And that was a long time ago and was of its time as well. So I don't want to try and even emulate that. I want to express my vision and my passion of the thing. So I'm going to take that section. We're going to move this aside, and I'll show you something else about it that makes it worth moving aside. You know what? I am going to keep working on that though, because my skills will come up when I keep working on that anyway, and working with the problems on that. Um, Technical problems with it is going to be very good for me. But something happened yesterday that I want to show you to the canvas. Now, that canvas I used earlier in the year for an acrylic painting I did live on a live stream as well. But you might be able to see this weird little square bit. You know what that is? That's a patch. I went to open the curtains yesterday in the room here and leaned across the easel, which is normally tucked in beside the table. And this tumbled off it and hit a butterfly nut in the bottom of the easel and got a big tear in it down here somewhere, which you can't see from the front because I patched it. But that's a painting that you wouldn't sell something that's patched like that. But it's going to free me up wonderfully to paint on it, isn't it? Um, so I am going to work on that one. But today, rather than working on a painting that I have run into the problem with, I'm going to demonstrate this idea that I have for this one. And I might have to mess around to get you to the right point. Again, we see. This is still going to be something of a reference, but not as much. Um, And this is a piece in its own right. It's very dead and I don't like it. That piece, I wouldn't try and sell that or anything. That's a practice piece, you know. But at least I can identify what for me I thought was the problem was with that. But I'm not really going to work from that piece now. Color wise, I might do a little bit of work from it. But what I'm going to do is I have another canvas and I can bring that up a bit. Trying to get the height exactly right for you guys to see the whole canvas. Hang on. Now. Oh, I'm so near the bottom. I don't lose you out the top then. Just needs to come up. Yeah, the bottom. You're slightly crooked, but I don't know how much that's going to bother you. Let's see, can I tilt you slightly? And bring it back a little bit because it's nice to be able to see the top and the bottom of the canvas so you can see what scale I'm working on. That's a forearm length for me, but I'm tiny, so it's about I don't know, it's about uh, a foot, 15 inches maybe, and I'm not sure. Oh, this is in centimeters. It's only really Europeans that do centimeters. I don't know what 36 centimeters is. It's not square though. It's very slightly landscape. Um, so big enough painting, but I want it big because I want to do something which is loose, is about color and form, right? Which all paintings are really, but compositionally might not have a compositional center or focal point as such, but is going to be about that section there just of the scene rather than about the whole scene. So I'm going to work on this painting and the other painting that is the whole scene, but I'm not going to work on both today during the live stream. I'll probably just work on this one because I want to do color things. So this is now the reference piece for the painting, in other words. And all that brushwork and everything, I'm going to try and replicate brushwork on a bigger scale. So it's going to be different. It's not copying what I have there already, which was some of the problem with that small painting that I did, that the big painting became too literal a copy of the copy, which was a copy of reality or trying to be a copy of reality in an illustration-y way that I didn't like. But I wasn't even pushing it the way people push illustrations to look punchy, if you know what I mean. Because a lot of people who work in an illustration style will push things like, say, here's another couple of sketches I did of the same scene. Say they had that work there, they might take this piece and put in a very striking black to make it look really in your face and kind of wow and grab your attention. And they might emphasize some tones in this rather than trying to get the tones as they were, naturalistically, just to have kind of a a kind of a comic book effect, really, of kind of, very stark contrasts in something. And that is very eye-catching now. It's not really what I'm going for. If you saw last week's live, um, I was looking at Monet, and I was looking at a Monet piece that was on one of these videos that has music, and they put on art screensavers with it. And it's a Monet piece. You might have come across it in your algorithm on YouTube if you're listening to anything similar to me. Um, it's a woman sitting in spring under lots of different greenery and everything. And the name of the playlist is something to do with spring as well. It's Ophelia, somebody or other is the channel name. But all the dapplediness of it and everything, but the looseness of the brushwork, I thought, yeah, that's what I want. So I might have to use bigger brushes, but that's good if I do, because that's trying to keep me loose. And I'll show you. I'm gonna put on clothes, and I even have, which I'd love to. Oh no, I have a little pen so that if I need to get at the screen to do anything, I'm not putting big painty hands or gloves on the screen. So that's good. So I just have to try not to lose that. And I got the phone screen fixed as well, which I'm very pleased about. The cracks that I got during Pen April on it, I got a big chip out of the screen, and I was worried it had gone through the screensaver onto the actual screen, and it hadn't. So I now have a new screensaver, screen protector on the phone, which I'm pleased about because I plan to do a lot more plein air stuff, and I don't want to be mucking up the phone. So I have this out, right? So you can see what colors I'm working with, and I'm gonna try to start the painting with a limited palette of yellow, red, and blue, phthalo blue, and then black and white for tonal mixing up or down, right? But if I want to use more colors later, I don't want to make things too complicated to start. And the other thing that's going to help simplify the scene, and I was actually working with that in the smaller painting, but I couldn't get it to work. I couldn't even get the colors to work terribly well for me. I'm working with this split complementary color scheme, which I was showing you how I was using before. I've chosen as my main color a green, which makes sense in this particular scene. There was a lot of green there. Spring trees, there's going to be a lot of green, isn't there? And so the two complementaries of that, you drop a line down to the other side of the color wheel, and then whatever colors you hit on either side of that directly opposite color are your two split complementaries. So I ended up with um, a red orange and a violet red for my split complementaries for green. Okay, so that means I'm working with three colors, and here they are. And when I was out sketching the scene, I was sketching it in those three colors. So orange was the main color, and then I had red, violet, and sorry, green was the main color, and then I had red, violet, and orange as the split complementary colors to those. So it's a split complementary color scheme I'm using for this. And I used it for something before and found it very useful. And this thing of messing with color schemes is really helping me focus on the two things that I want to focus on this year: color and form. Because I feel that my drawing and everything isn't too bad at the moment, I mean, always improve, always improve. So, what I have up on the screen, apart from uh, a YouTube window flung open, just so I can see if in focus, anything is in focus, and is I have a really large version of that little drawing that I'm working from. Uh, because I could just kind of peer at it in front of me like this. And again, it's that little bit I'm working with here, just that section. Other things might come into it, but that's my starting point. And I have a big version of that, like the one in the thumbnail, just pulled up on my screen on my computer. I don't want to be slavish to that either, but I think looking at the brush strokes is going to be very helpful. Now, you might be wondering about the color I have down on the canvas at the moment. That's a neutral color that was generated by There was another painting underneath it. I'm forever doing this, reusing canvases, and I like the texture. Sometimes that keeps me a bit loose as well. There's quite a lot of texture on that one. I think I had flowers on it last time, but this neutral wasn't generated from this color mix. It was generated from a different um, color harmony scheme. So it's probably not going to go perfectly with my current color scheme, but this section of it probably will, that more purpley color. So if I take a look at some of the colors that are going to be in it, there's going to be, I want to just stick down a few colors that I know are going to be in it. And I'm working in oils as well. The other thing I'll just mention while we're here is the idea of chroma in color. When you hear people talk about chroma, um, it's that's a phrase I hear more as people are working digitally, but it just means how whether something has black or white in it, or whether it's just pure colors. This color does not have black and white in it, so it has what you call a high chroma, or a high um, intensity of color, you know. So if I wanted to, just to show you, knock back the color and make it a lower chroma, if I add in black, you see, to the color, it knocks back the color a bit, doesn't it? Now, the way the color is sitting on that blue at the moment is, you know, giving it a strange effect as well. Um, it's not that far off tonally from that blue, but I'm gonna make a a red violet, which is one of my complementaries. You see, there's the dark version of it. Looks quite brown, you see, beside the green. If I add white into it, let's see what it looks like with white. I've added a little bit more red as well. So that's kind of interesting with the green, you see. So it's on the opposite side of the color wheel. So it's adding a bit of contrast, but it's not the exact complementary or opposite of that thing either. And then the third color that I'm allowed to use is orange. So we have to make red and yellow from orange. And it's a red orange. So I'm going to add more red than I have yellow into it. This is looking slightly tonal because I had a bit of white left on my brush, but I'm going to add more red and yellow and get it less tonal. So I can have it that intense, or with white. And I think when you're planning a painting, it's a good idea to do a little color swatch the way I did, um, to see what your colors look like with when they're lighter or darker. So you make the color up and then you make a lighter and a darker version of it. And then you can see what colors you have to work with. So obviously I can get a lot of my tree browns out of that color. And the orange there, you know, I can get a very intense high chroma orange, or I can have it a muted thing. And in this painting, some of the foliage is very high intensity, and then there's some foliage that's more in the background and that's more muted. So you can actually, if you get some of your green color, which you've made from your yellow and cyan blue is a primary color as well. So a primary yellow and a primary cyan blue. So you have that kind of color in the foreground. but you can either add more blue and go a little bit bluer, or you can add a bit of black and go a sort of a mossier dark green. So you see how you got a lot of tones in there. Then if you were mixing your orange with green, you're getting a lovely. Sorry, I'll just show you up here. That's the that's my red violet that had a lot of white that I put a lot of white in to bring up the tone, but it also took the intensity of the chroma out of the color, so it's a muted version. Um, that's quite a subtle kind of hazy, lovely green, which is a very nice color for sort of background greens. So these are the things. I'm sorry. So you can see how I'm thinking. And there was a bit in the. Sorry, I just have to stop this flying away because it might. I don't want another hole in the can. Um, there was a thing in this painting that I did like, and that was some of the trees on this side had that beautiful muted kind of grey green, and some of the trees in the background had it as well. And then behind the green of the buds here, you see, when you look at that on its own, that's nice. To me, that is a far more exciting painting. And in fact, you could cut that bit out and make a stretcher, or if you have a stretcher around the place that you could stretch it over, all you need is a little staple gun to stretch that over a different canvas. That could still be parts of that could still be an interesting painting. But I just like the idea of working with this on a bigger scale, basically. So what I want to do is get some browns in. So because I want to do some of the tree boughs. So we haven't really gotten away from being totally descriptive and mixing that a fairly red version of the red violet in with the green to get myself a brown. And I'm looking at the rhythm of the branches behind me, and I might actually go into a deep purple here. And really, out of those three colors, you get some version of any color you want. So see these shapes. That is a main element of the composition for me. The other main element of the composition is going to be sort of teardroppy shapes of the pale green against an and orangey and violet background, that red violet color. And the thing I found hard in the other painting, I don't know if I'll manage it in this one, but we'll see how it goes, was getting the colors kind of singing against each other. They were the same uh, tonal value. And I mean, I did look at black and white photo, but the black and white photo, some bits were a bit washed out on, didn't handle the whole tonal range. So it was just an idea, really. So I'm trying to get rid of a lot of this neutral background because I'm going to have that reading as a color in the composition if I don't. So I could go bigger even than this brush and that size or bigger. The only reason I'm using a palette this small is just so that I can show you the mixes. I lift up the palette and show you the mixes. getting rid of some. The only reason that color was on it, I was using up some of the old color, and I wanted to cover up the painting that was underneath because that would be distracting for, I didn't know what I wanted to paint it. Actually, for this one, it mightn't be that distracting, but they were very pale starburst lilies on top of a very dark background, so it probably would have been a bit distracting, to be honest. And of course, I'm going to use acres of paint on something this size compared to a small piece. But it's lovely working on a big piece. And the thing about working on two pieces at the same time, I know I'm not literally working on them at the same time, but over the next week or so, I will be working on the two of them. The nice thing is that if you get stuck with one, you move to the other one and you're instantly refreshed. And then you come back and see this one, hopefully, with fresh eyes. So a lot of that blue is gone now. And this Sansador non-smelly medium for oil paint that I'm using instead of white spirits or terps is working out great. I'm really happy with it. It handles just the same as terps or white spirits. I'm not noticing any difference in how it feels in the paint or how it dries out or anything. So I'm very happy. So every so often it's nice to work on a bigger scale, even though it's harder to film and everything, because it makes you do certain things. For example, it makes you loosen up a little bit because just something goes off in your mind that you go, no, I'll be here forever and never get this painting finished if I don't cover um, ground in a fairly quick way. So and then when your brush strokes get bigger, which they're bound to do, um, new things are going to happen. So this is another, I think last week's one was called experimentation, was it? I think so. Or was that learning from the master, Monet? I can't remember which was last week. Maybe the week before's one was experimentation. The weeks are just flying. But this is kind of experimentation as well. And already it looks kind of interesting, as a thing. But we're going to work on some green going. So that was I had that fairly thin. I need more red actually. I had that fairly thin, and you probably know the expression, or maybe you don't, I don't know, about oil paints, that you paint thick on thin. You can paint in pastel, which just means thick. You can paint it in pastel all the way if you like, but you have to know that it's going to take longer to dry out if it's in pastel, which is fine, but you just work with whatever's happening. But if you're working in this way, you normally wouldn't put a big thick layer on underneath and then expect to be able to come back the same day or even a week later or even 2 weeks sometimes, depending how thick the thing is. You wouldn't expect to be able to come back and paint over it and have that paint underneath dry. So that's a thing to be aware of with oil paint that you don't run into as much with acrylics, because acrylics have such a quick drying time. Now I'm breaking up the green shape a bit because I want to go in again, and as I'm mixing, I'm getting like nice ideas from my palette because I love the mixture of green and brown, and I can get a lovely dark green with that's quite subtle. And I do want I've lost some of my branchy shapes, but that's okay. I do want some dark shadow underneath the bright greenness. But remember, I said I don't want to be too literal either. So I'm not panicking about, okay, I have to do my leaves very carefully and like this, you know. So let me get a nice leaf brush. And having to replenish colors quite fast because look at the color it's sped through on big canvas. And that's why when you generate a neutral color, you save that because you don't want to waste paint. Oil paint is expensive. But the way you generate that neutral color is from all the stuff you mixed up from a day's painting, you mix it all together with the powder, scrape it all together. And you end up with this, you should end up with a neutral, which is lovely for using to sort of knock back the chroma that we were talking about in colors, knock back the chroma a little bit in colors, because the thing about very bright chromatic colors, and it's not always true, sometimes you do want a very bright color, is sometimes you want to knock back the color. Like I've knocked back the chroma of the color here with the addition of white. So as you can see, the chroma doesn't mean the tone. It means the intensity of the color. But that is a full chroma yellow there. Look, that's what you call a high chroma, that yellow. It's very vibrant, you know what I mean? Whereas the white beside it is a little bit more, you can see it on the palette, maybe easier. A little bit more subtle. Same would be true if you put some black in. And the same would be true if you put some of your neutral color that you had generated the day before from all the mixed up colors, a little dab of the neutral color in with your paint when you're trying to mute down the high chromatic color a little bit, which you often do want to do, because they're very screaming colors. Now, I want them very screamy in some places. I don't mind, you see. Um, but they're not subtle. Uh, but I suffer from being too subtle. I have to say, oh, I'm too subtle. I have to admit, sometimes I'm too subtle. Um, and then my painting can descend into this kind of hell of midtones that are and then it can, because I glaze things as well, sometimes it can start getting darker and darker, and I have to really watch that. But sometimes dark is nice. But what I want to have happen in this one is I just want little tiny bits dark. So I'll show you what I mean. I can find yet another blush. And the reason I keep getting different brushes out is I don't want to have to clean the brushes much between um, doing things. And I don't want to have any white left in the brush if I'm going for a really chromatic, high chroma color. So let's say, yeah, I'll do it this way. So that dark bit really stands out, doesn't it? Now, all my colors really are muted in that they've got, most of them have black or white in them because they do look very dark without it. So what I'm doing now is I'm sort of wanting to groove, if you like, on particular colors. And if I can find a brush I was using my yellow on, I want to see that purple beside some yellow. I don't just have a color challenge going on. I have a what kind of brush marks I'm making type challenge as well. But I find what happens is that can sort itself out a little bit as you go along, because as you get a bit freer, as you progress in your painting, um, you just get a lot faster, and before you know it, you're lashing along, and the quality of the brush marks improves from just being very fluid, quick. But there is a time to kind of slow down a bit. And I'm trying to. So the thought process that's going on for me is that I'm back at the scene, and the amount of looking at trees that had the same thing going on that I've done between my last session and this, because I had to go somewhere yesterday and didn't get to do my painting, but I got to look at trees. And I had a big sort of think about it and just let treeishness wash over me kind of thing. Um, so that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of recalling it. I'm not recalling it though in that way I was talking about, the literal way. I'm recalling sort of the poetry of the tree, if you like, which sounds a bit pretentious. But what I also want to do is, there's a fabulous colour down here. I don't want to get at, and I like it because it's an emerald. Some of those things happened on purpose, some of them happened by accident, but when you blow it up to a bigger size, you get a new thing happening. So that it's an interesting thing to try. I think it's worth trying. Have a look at some of your sketchbook work and see if there's anything in there that you think, wow, what would that be like at a bigger size? I don't know that you can do it in a non-spontaneous way, though. It was one of those things that just suggested itself to me when I saw that sketch, and it's something that I do think sometimes. So you see the way I'm trying to sort of get the rhythm of the tree and the rhythm, the way the light is catching it. So, like, I'm not trying to do an impressionist painting either, but I am trying to do an impression of the scene. But I'm not trying to make it look like a Monet, okay? Because I'm not Monet. I have my own way of painting, but I'm constantly trying to free up my way of painting. Now, I want to. How much can I see? Drawing of where bows are going, and what am I going to do about the way the bow is going in that. Let me find my little sketch again. As I said, I don't want to be a slave to the sketch, but I do want to get some ideas out of it. You can see the cool emeraldy kind of greens in there. They're nice. There's a little kind of shape of lovely purple with a dark purple beside it, and quippy sort of marks, and I'm going to put that in next up in this corner, and that'd be fun. So that's a warmer. So with those complementary colors, you can go kind of to either side of them on your color wheel and go even more towards the red if you want, But the idea is don't go too far away from them because then you're into, oh, well, you're just using all the colors again. So I'm trying to like keep it narrowed down for the sake of the overall harmony of the piece. Whoops, sorry, I knew I would hit my head off that at some stage. You're only missing a little tiny bit of the top of the painting, in case you're wondering. So that's might be the best there. That might be even a bit better. Okay, so it looks like a shoal of fish at the moment, doesn't it? But we won't worry about it having to look like the thing. If it can start feeling like the thing at any stage, I'll be happy. So, so you might think that there would be a lot more work to unify a big painting, but look at the amount of information I've cut out in this painting that was in the other painting. So I've simplified matters quite a bit. Now I have some really showing the painting that I'd love to have in this. So I'm gonna be just a bit daring. And the only reason I'm going back over brushstrokes is some brushstrokes I didn't like them. So it's nice if you get them right the first time. There's a bright pink that I really like, which is just a pale version of that purple, but with orange mixed in with it, I think. So I mix it with purple and an orange and then grab a bit of both and then add white. And I think I have the color there. Look. And the sort of brush that I'm using might keep changing as well. I'm not used to what kind of mark is going to make my leaves nice. Yeah. And I might also keep working back from foreground to background to foreground. But I want to have some whipped kind of marks here of browny red that were in the sketch that I really liked. I remember sitting at the riverbank doing that and just really enjoying that. I enjoyed how it looked. And it's very hard to get that on this scale, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the type of brush I'm using again. And I'm going to get a brush that I would normally use for, I can find that pile of brushes. A brush that I would normally use for wash or even watercolor. A very soft brush and see if I can get it better than that. Because that does something else again, you see. So it gets to a stage, this isn't quite doing it's starting to, I suppose, in this corner, and this is why it reminded me. It gets to the stage, right, where the painting takes on a life of its own, and you're sort of not completely doing a painting about the place anymore. You're doing a painting that's as much about the painting as it is about the place. Okay, so this is the time when you're getting away from that literal thing. So I'm playing, for example, with the idea here of the way the light hit leaves, but there's no part of the there's no part of the drawings that I have, any of the sketches, where I have exactly this formation going on in the drawing. So I'm not doing a literal version of it. And has just suggested this itself and made a sort of, I don't know, dragony kind of shape out that I'm liking. And even the leaf shape isn't, I was going to do things going up, but now they look like they're kind of little things coming down. So that's what's meant by getting away from the literal. And the way the fellow was watching, uh, I don't know, did he solve it? I don't think I saw the whole video actually. Saw it as a thumbnail and saw a few seconds of it and then went off to the shops or something. You know the way it is on the internet. We never watch anything anymore. um, all the way through. Our attention is so grabbed here and there. But I think he did solve it, and what he came up with was putting the paint on with his fingers. And I think that putting the paint on with his fingers probably stopped him from getting too fiddly, with things. Because um, I'm having to really work at not getting too fiddly here. Now I have some lovely kind of viridian-y darker greens down here. So I want to keep working on the painting because it is, even though I said there isn't a focal point in it, it is something about the composition. So I want to see what that kind of a green would look like down there. I like those marks, longer kind of marks. And they still do relate to leaves, movement of leaves, and but just not in that completely literal way. Yeah, there might be a reference to water going to come into it as well, but we'll handle the water in a different way, see. Because I think I could. So I'm not making too many decisions yet about how I want it to look in the end. I'm still so early. I'm trying to stay loose and experiment. So I definitely wouldn't approach every painting like this. But they do say different horses for different courses. So I want this surface to be a reflective feeling. So I'm sort of, again, I'm evoking the memory of the water. There's quite a lot of like imaginative stuff going on in this, but you have to have things in your imagination. Like when you go out and you do plein air stuff, um, you're building up a storehouse for your imagination, a storehouse of memory of particular effects, things you saw, structures of things, um, colors, and when it's coming out and you're trying to express your sort of passion for the scene, hopefully you've got stuff like that just kind of flowing out of your imagination. I definitely do because I went back so many times. And this is possibly, I don't know, I think possibly where somebody working from photographs might have a slight disadvantage because I don't know that you would have that kind of a stored memory. So for somebody working like that, you're just coming up with some different technique for getting the passion out. So um or a different thing that the passion is about in the first place, maybe, I don't know. See, now I'm doing what I wanted to be doing in the other one. which is enjoying individual brushstrokes. And those little brushstrokes that I made down there in that corner there, I enjoyed them so much. There's another feeling I want to evoke over here. I'm not even going particularly with the drawing. Like I'm not closely copying the drawing now either. I have enough from the drawing that I can start going with feelings more. And I want to get the that feeling of branches with leaves touching the water and being sort of draped into them. And because of that scene, the water was very different from that bank. I'll just show you the referencing thing that isn't really, we're not really referring to very closely again. The water in the bank, there were different things going on. That was another problem that wasn't happening in the painting terribly well. There were different things going on, but they had different qualities. The water had a different quality to the trees, but they were interacting with each other. You know what I mean? In a lovely way, and I'd like to get some of that in there. So again, and I just mixed the wrong color there. My palette usually looks a lot more interesting than a painting does, and I would like to get to the stage someday where my painting looks as good as my palette. That's kind of an ambition. And the palette, it looks that good because it's not thought out, you see. So I would like to be able to paint figurative work in a non-literal way, um, and have as much non-thought that's looks very good as goes on in my palette. Accidental kind of look of things, but be able to control it to just the right amount that, oh, look, I didn't have any marks like that before. And they do explain something that was there that day. Um, Going to get some hollows in there for kind of water. Because the trees hung over, dripping down into the water. See, this is where you start really enjoying painting. When you can get yourself loosened up a bit. I'm now loosened up a bit artistically, and I can start enjoying painting. I mean, forget, tomorrow or the next day when you might start hating the painting. And maybe, I don't know, you're probably not doing things right if you don't hate your paintings sometimes. I'm thinking. There's this wonderful bit in the middle though that's so bright. I would like to get that. So let me keep an eye on the time. Only 2 minutes. I'm gonna put in a really bright bit in the middle. Wish me luck, folks. The fan brush is coming out for this because that can cover a lot of space. But I also want to get more white paint out. So I have to reach under here. Hang on. I like the colours so far anyway. But on a canvas this size, you can be working quite fast and feel like, ooh, I didn't get very much done. But I would be happy enough working on this for a week, 2 weeks, or sometimes even work on things for 3 weeks. But I don't really intend to with these because I said I wanted to work a little bit faster and just do more paintings just for practice this year. So I kind of have it in my mind that I might like to sort of have a week as my aim. So used to working small now that I keep not putting enough on my brush to be able to do that with. And here's the nice thing with oil paints. You see those kind of marks there, um, that leave kind of texture and everything on the surface. You can do that with oil paint very, very easy. So I'm going to get a bit more red orange and start bringing up that section a bit. And I have been practicing my dottiness, getting good at being dotty, because I wanted to have all this spring sort of dottiness in a painting. It was something that was very interesting to me. So, and what I'm going to do today is leave it at an interesting point as well, so that when I come back tomorrow, I won't be saying, what the heck was I trying to do? You know? So I have some near that time now, but I do have some things going on that are interesting. And you can see I'm not being very literal about just copying some pictures of trees from a sketchbook. And I'm not being using any sort of big tricks of color-wise or anything to look made you look. You know what I mean? It's still it's bright and everything, but when you look at the colors, they're still, well, they're a bit washed out on the screen. Actually, oil paintings are very hard to photograph because they don't take the light very well, so it doesn't look quite as washed out as it looks on the screen there. But it's going to be some very light colors in it. So I'm trying to do dramatic things without having very dramatic contrast, but there will be a few. So some of the dark, um, there are going to be some dark colors, like sort of very dark brown, very dark green spots of, and then that orange running through it as well. There's I'm being literal in that sense, that I am sticking with what was at the scene, because I think if I go too overboard with non-literal, right, I'll end up with just a fantasy piece that's completely abstract that um, I can't control as easily, if you know what I mean. I think the fact that still going to be figurative is going to be a thing which is going to help me possibly exert some control over it. You know, and somebody else might not get so lost if they went totally abstract. But for me, I think I want to have some of the challenge of having to explain something figuratively, but I just don't want it to be as literal as what I was doing there before. You know? But you can still see how I'm trying to do things about water, about trees and branches, and different types of foliage meeting, and the light hitting them as well. So that is that is the subject matter of what I'm trying to paint here. And I like those colors, because there was a bank down here that had very dark shadows in it, and then it went into very dark greens and very lively dark greens and purple as well. You know, I'm trying to still keep it fairly fluid and not be too sort of. And I'm just thinking I introduced a kind of a bluish color then. I'm not convinced. Oh, let me show you the neutral. Let's see what color neutral we generated. This is my latest game. I love doing this. We'll do this before we go. So at the end of the day, right, you got your palette like this. You get all your oil colors out. Now, because oil color doesn't dry super fast like acrylics, you can come along with the palette knife and do this kind of thing here. Bit of scraping and go around, scrape back down in between all your colors that are still okay. Just scrape back the ones that have gone a bit gnarly and mix them all up and then see what you end up with. Okay, here we go. You ready? So our neutral this time is green, which was the primary color of the thing. And actually, that's good news that our neutral turned out to be that, because it's the main color in this color scheme, green. So if you end up with a greenish neutral color, that means that green is mostly what's going on in the picture. So it's the main color. So although I have purples and everything, you know, I've got an amount of green that's still making green the main color. And you see there I'm sneaking up that little neutral into other colors. They're so nice, the neutral colors, because they're something very attractive about them. And you know, I like all these little ridges of things that turn up as well. Texture is fun in the painting. So, you know, this is about trying to be free and like I'm kind of playing with some of the dappledy pattern as well. And that will be enjoyable to pick up at that point tomorrow. And what I'll do is I'll start at that point probably tomorrow if I remember, because this is what I often do at the end of a day. I leave it at a bit I find exciting, and um, I say, okay, I'm going to pick it up at such and such place tomorrow. So I want to pick it up as at those slicky highlights on the water. Okay. And so, like this section here is at the moment turning out to be about the lovely movement of the water that's just come down from the weir. And, you know, these bits are, to me, look like the splashes that come up from that water. And, you know, I'm sort of refraining doing too much of sort of big highlighty impasted highlighty things because I don't want to make any final statements yet. So I'm building the painting out from the back, which happens in oil painting quite a bit, this building out from the back. I do. Don't know that I like those, that thing coming down. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop because I've gone over my time. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of movement and excitement in it. And there was a wonderful calm about trees when I was out, but I think that'll come out of the general thrust of the pattern that we end up with for this section of the trees, and possibly with a bit of that, I don't know. But the action down here, I want to be gentle in some places as well, and then um bit more violent on this side where it's coming down off the weir. So I don't know that the cows were going to look in, but there's more getting a look in than I thought would get a look in this. And I, you know, not a set in stone plan. That's just how it's going at the moment. So I'm going to stop there, folks. And I hope you saw something in that that would give you ideas about, you know, ways you might try painting or might be interesting, or ways to just explore the thing, ways in to something that either you're having trouble with, or um, if you even thought a little bit about that idea of painting, are you painting in a literal way? Or what is it you're trying to get from a painting that you do? Are you just trying to get a literal representation of something? Is that um, is that a painter's approach or not? You see, might have different ideas to me. Um, but of course, I'm going to say I'm right because I've thought about these problems so much and worked with them so much. I haven't mastered them, but at least I can kind of see for me in my painting what a problem is and see ways forward, you see, if I'm getting back into it. And I think that that guy that was talking about not wanting to paint literally and coming up with a little plan to do something in a non-literal way. And his what he came up with was painting with his fingers to get him out of that, because it was a dead end, a little cul-de-sac he was going into if he continued on with that approach, you see. So that got me thinking. So that was good that I did. All right, I'm stopping. I'm stopping because I have other things that I want to do. Okay, so thanks for dropping in and have a lovely weekend. And I am now going to look for there it is, my little pen, so that I can turn the live stream off, because the little end live stream button is kind of halfway under the tripod. So this will be fun. I might have to unscrew the phone from the tripod to actually leave. But we'll take it out and show you the painting from different angles to see, can you see it in slightly better lighting. It's still very, very washed out looking, but this is life. Yeah, interesting. Okay, see ya. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Bye.